Hello everyone, we hope you're all doing well. Welcome to one more video as part of your InstaEthics GS4 initiative presented to you by Insights IAS team. In this video, we will be discussing the next aspect of your UPSC syllabus, that is human values. This is going to be a three-part video, my friends. This is, as you all know, one of the most important chapters in your UPSC GS4 syllabus, very critical for you scoring more marks in section A as well as section B. There was a student yesterday who has scored marks of around 104 and 110, and she had expressed her desire to know what more she can do to increase these marks even more. I'll just give you a brief strategy as such for this video. What is this brief strategy? Here they have written the term lessons. Okay, lessons from whom? The lives and teachings of great leaders, reformers and administrators. Now when I am discussing this topic, I will be focusing on those individuals who have been asked extensively in UPSC previous year question papers. I know you would have done that. I will be focusing on also those individuals who are part of your other UPSC syllabus, that is GS 1, 2, 3. I am quite sure that you would have done this as well. I will be giving you 20 list of individuals and I will be focusing on what were the values that they showcased in their life, how did these values help them, and how they are critical to us in the present times. Because when you look at this key term, it is the lessons. You need to learn from them. That is the basic idea behind this topic. What I want from you is you make a list of your own, my friend. And in this list, you also maintain. In this list, you write whom you think are great. Apart from what we have discussed, you make a list of whom you think are great leaders, reformers and administrators. Corresponding to each and every individual that you choose, go for values, go for what kind of help it gave them when they followed these values and how they are important in the present scenario. If you do this, you're 90% ahead of your competitors. That is first thing. The second thing is what I have observed whenever I'm having a ethics-based discussions with students, they just look at this chapter keeping in mind human beings, that's all. They just go for the literal interpretation of that. That is good. It's not wrong, but it is just only partial. Because on a yearly basis, you will be coming across so many institutions, right? In the last 4 or 5 months, non-alignment movement is in news because of this Russia-Ukraine issue. Many people criticize NAM when it was initiated, saying that it was an organization for those countries which lacked the courage to be part of either USA or USSR. But in reality, this was an organization which showed much of courage in standing up to both USA as well as USSR. Is it not? Now this NAM has become relevant even in the present times. You need to apply these humanistic values. When you're reading about these multilateral organizations as well, when you're looking at the Indian governance system as well, you need to apply these human values. It is very important. You have come across that VVIP culture. Why does VVIP culture come into the picture? When people are not humble, when officers are not humble. Is that good VVIP culture? Absolutely not. You need to read this chapter and have the ability to apply to what you are reading and what is in the news and to implement the same thing in your answers as well. That is the most important thing. Moving on. Okay. Let me just start the discussion on what are values. I will tell you a very simple story about a cow and a tiger, which you all might have heard of. If not all, most of you might have heard of. Cow and tiger, they are enemies, natural enemies. They don't like each other because tiger preys upon the cow. Now in this story, a tiger who is very hungry, he comes across a cow. The cow is very scared. The tiger wants to eat that cow. The cow just makes a very simple, humble request. Mr. Tiger, let me go home. I want to go home because there is a kid who is waiting for me, my calf. And I want to feed that kid and I will come back, I promise you. The tiger, even though it was very hungry, it was curious as to what this cow would do, because the tiger believed that the cow was trying to deceive him. Nevertheless, the tiger allowed the cow to go back to her kid. So when the cow went, it fed her kid, and after that it also gave certain instructions to the kid. Be very humble in life, be very honest, be very courageous. These were certain instructions given by the mother to her kid. After doing all these things, the cow came back to the tiger. The tiger was dumbfounded. The tiger was mesmerized. Seeing the honesty, seeing the courage of that cow, the tiger let go of the idea of eating the cow itself. Many of you have heard stories like this. Many of you have come across many Tantra stories like this as well. What does it show over here? Here it shows the values that the cow believed in: honesty, courage, both of which we know what it means. We know that being honest is good, both in our private as well as public life, but we are not honest all the time, is it not? Let's be very practical. We are honest in those situations which will help us. In those situations where we need to be honest, if we perceive that being honest will harm us, we tend to stay silent. This happens at all the levels in our country, in our world, to be more precise. Right? That is one thing that you can talk about. Values. The other important or the significance of values is, if you have positive values, it will create a change in the behavior of other people in and around you. That behavioral change you observed in this tiger when it decided not to kill the cow. Now, this is not just a story, my friends. This is something that happens in reality. Hygiene was a value that many people knew it was important but did not follow. We had total sanitation campaign, we had Nirmal Bharat Abhiyan, but both of them were not relatively a very big success. But when we came up with Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, it was a lot more successful than the other campaigns. Why was it a lot more successful? Here, from a common man till the President of India showcased the value of hygiene. When they themselves showcased it, when they themselves led by example, it created a positive incentive for everyone to follow that. Leading by example, a quality, a value that future administrators should have. You have come across news articles where parents did not want to send their kids to Anganwadi schools because the people in Anganwadi who prepared the food were from the lower sections in the society. What did the leaders or the administrators do in that instance? They did not push harsher measures for justice. What they did was very simple. They themselves went and had food in the Anganwadi. This brought about a behavioral change in the attitude, in the behavior of the parents as well. Their values changed. Right? As a leader, it's not just that you should show positive values. As a leader, the values that you hold should be reflected in actions. Those actions in turn should affect the behavioral of people in and around you for the progress of the country. It is very important for you to give due emphasis to this chapter. Don't read anything passively. Please apply that to your life and what you're reading and what is happening in and around you. That is the most important thing. This is what separates people who read a lot but still don't get into the merit list. But people who get into the merit list, most of the times they do read, but more often than not, they don't read passively. They apply things. That is what is required, my friends. Okay, let me just give you the technical definitions of values because I know this is important from your examination point of view. Values are personal beliefs that steer people's behavior in one direction or the other, which we observed in this cow. They act as a manual for how people should behave. All these Panchatantra stories and all, they were just basically like a manual. You should do these things. You should not lie. You should be honest. You should not steal. You should have compassion, sympathy. You should be courageous. Right? Values tell you how people should behave. Human values. Why does it tell you how to behave? If you have negative values in place of the positive values, there will be no stability in the society. Everything in the society will come down. Right? Moving on. This is just about values. What are human values? I'll just define them and then I will explain it. What is the definition of human values? Human values are the virtues that guide us to take into account the human element when we interact with other human beings. Human element. Let me take the example of Swami Vivekananda. Swami Vivekananda, as you all know, is one of the great leaders and reformers and philosophers of this, not just this country, but in the world as well. Swami Vivekananda was having a spiritual discussion with one of his followers. I will not get into the whole detail of the discussion, but in that discussion, what Swami Vivekananda says is, yes, spirituality is important for me, but I will never preach this spirituality to a person who is hungry. Simple. Swami Vivekananda is having a personal value. But when he is interacting with other human beings, his own personal preference are kept aside. When he is interacting with other human beings, what matters over here is that compassion, that love, that care that is being showcased in this. Human values are nothing but the values that you use when you are interacting with others. That is about it. Right? Please remember this. Lal Bahadur Shastri. Lal Bahadur Shastri was one of the great leaders of this country. He showcased the values or the importance of responsibility and also accountability. How is this? Lal Bahadur Shastri was our railway minister at one point in time, and unfortunately there was a railway accident. No one called for the resignation of Lal Bahadur Shastri because all of them know that Lal Bahadur Shastri was a leader of high moral stature. But nevertheless, Lal Bahadur Shastri took responsibility on himself. He wanted to create a positive accountability mechanism for leaders coming after him, and he resigned. That is something that we need more in the present scenario, is it not? Because we have our politicians who are prima facie in their FIR, there is some evidence against them, but nevertheless, they stick to their power. They consider themselves to be all the accountability mechanisms that we have in our country. They don't want to subject themselves to the responsibilities that they have as leaders. When I talk about the importance of this also, spirituality and hungerness, in the present scenario, there are many people who are suffering from poverty, suffering from inequality, and you're teaching them ideologies which are extreme in nature. What good will they do at the end of the day? Because it's not the ideology which feeds a person. Basic necessities of roti, kapda, makan, that is what is required. And politics should be done for that. Religion should focus on increasing or overcoming the lack of food, clothing and shelter. Is it not? Right? What I am showcasing to you over here is I've picked leaders, philosophers, administrators, have showcased the important values that they talked about, how it helped them in their life, and how it is important for us in the present scenario. I want you to have this framework when you're going through this approach. Last one, Sam Manekshaw. Field Marshal Sam Manekshaw. There was a meeting which was happening concerning the issue of Eastern Pakistan in 1971. Refugees were flowing from East Pakistan at that point in time. Prime Minister wanted, at that point in time, the Chief of the Armed Forces, Sam Manekshaw, to do something about it, to even go to East Pakistan if it required. Our chief at that particular point in time denied it. Everyone, including the Prime Minister, was surprised. How is it that my instruction as a Prime Minister is not being accepted? Sam Manekshaw said, should I resign based on health grounds or something else? Then Prime Minister asked, why is it that the Chief of the Armed Forces do not want to take the advice of the Prime Minister, not the advice, the demand of the Prime Minister? The Chief said, Madam, if we go to East Pakistan at that point in time, we will be assured of defeat. The reason being very simple, we don't have the enough resources. We have not planned adequately, and the weather in that region will change drastically. We need to do that plan. Sam Manekshaw showed that courage. And how is it that is important now? We have officers who are supposed to uphold the integrity of the Constitution. And to uphold this integrity, they need to showcase that courage. But more often than not, they're lacking in that courage. They are afraid of speaking out against people in power because they are feeling that they will be persecuted in terms of multiple transfers, in terms of promotions being held up. This is what is wrong. When our officers become courageous, this accountability mechanism of the leaders whom we elect will also improve, is it not? Right? So that's the thing. Moving on, making ethical decisions frequently entails comparing different values and deciding which value to prioritize. When you are in your personal sphere, you might give emphasis to certain value, but when you are in your professional sphere, you have to give emphasis to those values which are enshrined in your constitution, in spite of what personal values you might hold. Example, you might believe that killing is wrong, but when you are part of a legal profession and if you get a case where you have to defend a person who has been alleged of committing a crime, committing a murder, you still have to go ahead and do that. That's your professional value. Okay? That is the thing. People with differing values may disagree, which can result in conflicts over priorities and preferences. The best example that I can use to convey this point is our Prime Minister believes that there is no business for a government to be in business. I will not get into the rightness or the wrongness of the action. What I will though get into is both the sides of the story. Some people believe, yes, our Prime Minister is absolutely right. There is no business for a government to be in business. Priorities and preferences of some people. There are other set of people who say that there is a need for a government to be in business. This is another priorities and preferences. Many people did not want Air India to be privatized. We have so many issues like that. On abortions, on homosexualities, on triple talaq. You name any controversial issue, you will have people disagreeing with it. How to deal with this disagreement, we will talk about it in later classes. Just one definition of values from a sociologist perspective. According to R.K. Mukherjee, values are socially approved desires and goals that are internalized through the process of conditioning. You do something good, I am rewarding you. You do something bad, I am punishing you. I am conditioning you to follow certain values. Learning in your home, in your schools, through movies. Socialization, when you interact with people around you, you might pick out certain habits or values from your friends, right? This is what socialization means. And that become subjective preferences, standards and aspirations. You want to become like Field Marshal Sam Moniksha. You want to become like Swami Vivekananda because of the values that they hold, right? This acts as a standard model for us to behave. Quickly, I'll go through the characteristic of values. Values are different from each person. You take out any human being, you take up any human being on this planet, all of them will have different set of values, and even in this set of values, they might give emphasis to one over the other. Then you have some values which have intrinsic words such as love, truth and freedom. Love and truth, this is something that you're following as an end in itself because it is required for the growth of you as an individual. Right? It's not a mean, it is not a tool. Intrinsic, it is for yourself. Intrinsic values are also called as terminal values. Please remember this as well. The opposite of this is extrinsic values. Okay. Other values, it is also called as instrumental. These values are instrumental. It acts as a tool to achieve some end in itself. Some other end. This is a means. This value, instrumental values, are means to achieve an end. What is the example of this? Ambition, responsibility, courage. If you are an armed forces professional, you are in a theater command in the border area, you need to showcase that courage. If not, the people under you will not follow you. They won't believe in your leadership skills. So here courage is an instrumental value to a bigger objective. Moving on, some values are perceived as sacred, which will seldom be compromised because they are perceived as duties rather than as factors to be waived in decision making. What is the example of this? Just because I've used the term sacred doesn't mean that it is related to religion. Each and every leader of ours, be it Dr. Ambedkar, who held equality to be a sacred value, be it Mahatma Gandhi ji, who held the values of truth and non-violence to be important or sacred, they did not compromise on these values, come what may. This is what it means. I have just one request from you. What do you think are sacred values for an administrator? Please let me know in the comment section. Moving on, values varies across time and space. When we were growing up, we believed, I've used this example before, I'm just using it once more. We believed in community welfare. But now we have become individualistic in sense. Spirituality was something which was there a couple of years ago. And the nature of the spirituality was different. But now we have become more materialistic in the sense. We have become more competitive in the sense. Values varies across time. Values varies across space as well. In an Indian society, socialism, welfare are very core, important values. But when you go to American society, over there you have capitalism, market forces, demand and supply, all those things, right? Moving on, personal values can be influenced by culture, tradition, and a combination of internal and external factors. Internal, the life experiences that you might face, okay? External, the schools, the educational system, the interactions with others as part of your professional organization, all these things. Most of our core values, the important sacred values, are learned early in the life. Family, friends, neighborhood, school, mass print, visual media, and other sources within the society. Honesty in Mahatma Gandhi ji was fed to him, was internalized, was conditioned into Mahatma Gandhi ji through his family. Right? You can talk about that. When we talk about Dr. B.R. Ambedkar as well, the courage, the emphasis on equality was not something that the leader picked out from the school itself, but it was in the family, the support of his father. Okay? That one. Values influence people's behavior and serve as criteria for evaluating the actions of others. The story that I told you, value in that story, the behavior of tiger changed when he looked at the value of the cow. Okay? And criteria for evaluating the action of others. It happens in our home itself, right? If brother does something good, the eldest brother, the younger brother often is told, look at your elder brother, follow his actions, follow his values. We are told to follow the values of great leaders, reformers, and administrators. That is the whole purpose of this chapter. Okay? Quickly, I will talk about the types of values. Most of them are self-explanatory, right? Personal values, something that you believe in. Family values, okay, that you follow in your private sphere, in the domain of family. Social values, when you're interacting with others. Moral values, which you hold very dear. Ethical values as part of society, organization. Spiritual values, your culture, not culture, but religion as such. Cultural values, okay. In Indian society, the cultural values revolves around religious tolerance. So you can talk about this. Then you have transcultural values. Here also you can talk about Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which believes in all world is my family, right? Then you have intrinsic and instrumental. I've spoken about them already. You have aesthetic values, okay? Values in terms of beauty, not beauty as in the physical sense, having preferences over certain arts over the others. Democratic values, which are part or which are given a legal character. The values that you find in our constitution as part of preamble, fundamental rights, DPSPs, so on and so forth. Okay. In this video, there was no question as such. I did not discuss the practical framework for the last question, but as and when I complete the whole batch of 3 videos as part of human values, I will be discussing the previous question, and I will also be giving you a bunch of questions on this topic at the end of the 3 video installment. This was about the values. In the next few classes, we will be talking more about the values that we need to learn from leaders, reformers, and administrators, and how to apply them in our personal as well as professional life in the present times. Thank you for your time. I hope this was useful. If you have any questions, feel free to post them in the comment section. Thank you.